So recording has started, sir.
Yes. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir. Yes, yes.
So you are seeing my screen and you can hear my voice. This is the part 9 of our program on sustainable engineering, and this part deals with legal provisions for environmental protection. Many of us will come across so many legal issues. Maybe if you are staying in a municipal area, every day when you get up, in front of your gate, so much of waste may be deposited. It can even accumulate overnight. Another case is you are staying very close to a mosque or a temple or a church, and in the early morning, very early morning, heavy loudspeaker noise is coming from these places of worship, and you are unable to sleep in the morning. You lose your sleep every day, and you want to address your complaint. Another case is that you are staying very close to a cement factory. You are unable to breathe properly. Whenever you breathe, cement particles you are inhaling, and you are getting asthmatic trouble, breathlessness. All these things are associated with. So whether we can take up these issues, whether we have protection about these issues, they are the legal provisions we do have. Legal provisions for environmental protection which affect us. Similarly, I had to attend a case at Ernakulam. There is a place in Ernakulam district called Kurumala. I went there as a fact-finding mission, and I found that there is a hill. It's a rocky hill. That rock was mostly basalt rock. On top of that hill, there are some 20 to 30 families, and they have to climb. They are actually not a developed society there. They are hardworking people, mostly of scheduled caste and scheduled tribe people. They are living on top of the hill, and on the bottom of the hill, a big industrialist has started quarrying the rock. So every day there is so many blasts at the foot of the hill, and all these people on top of the hill are afraid because it is vibrating like anything and huge bursting sound. So some environmentalists took up this. It was given as a case in the High Court, and the High Court wanted some expert opinion on this, and that is how I was invited to visit that. And my report on Kurumala is available on the internet. You can see that report if you want. Kurumala, K-O-O-R-U-M-A-L-A. Based on that report, the court proceeded. And of course, this is also an environmental issue. Similarly, we may have so many such issues in and around us which we have to address and which may be affecting the very existence of human beings as an individual or as a society. And what are the legislations for it? That is what we are going to discuss today. And now, why these legislations have come? I told you that only in the 1970s, the last 50 years, industrial production gained momentum. The 70s experienced an ascent of industrialization globally, but still then, only some highly mechanized primary industries were there. Secondary and tertiary industries were not much. But in the 70s, the secondary and tertiary industries also has grown up. When it came up to the 80s and 90s, the electronics industry also has grown like anything. And of course, the environment also started getting affected in that proportion. And there was a need felt all over the world that environment conservation is necessary and prevention of pollution is must. As a result of these things, the United Nations, the apex body of all the nations in the world, the United Nations held a conference at Stockholm in 1972 on environment. I think, just wait for a minute. The United Nations conference at Stockholm in June 1972 made certain major decisions. India was also a participant in that. So we also started implementing the UN decisions, Stockholm decisions thereafter. And added to that, in India, you know that in December 1984, there was a mega tragedy, the Cobalt Gas Tragedy, where hundreds of people died, many were made imbecile, many were paralyzed, many became unconscious, and that too in the late night the tragedy happened, and it added momentum to the environmental thoughts in India. Actually, the environmentalists became strong in India after the Cobalt gas tragedy in 1984 December. And as a consequence of all these things, there was a comprehensive law in India which was made in 1986, 2 years after the Bhopal gas tragedy. And that comprehensive act in India is called the Environment Protection Act 1986. And it is very comprehensive. In India, we call it as the Bible of Indian environment laws. It is an act actually. What is an act? No, act is what is passed by a legislature, whether it is at state level, the assembly, or it is at central level, the parliament. When some proposal is submitted to the parliament or state assembly, we call it as the bill. Bill is submitted to the parliament. Then the bill is discussed in the parliament. If it is a national bill, if it is a state level bill, it is discussed in the assembly. And after the bill is discussed, they will have submissions on that, further discussions on that. At the end of it, by the majority of the people present in the assembly or the parliament, they will pass the bill. Once a bill is passed by the parliament or assembly, it is called an act. When the governor of the state or the president of India signs it. So signing is very necessary. Even after the bill is passed by the assembly or the parliament, the state governor or the president of India has to approve it. Then only it becomes an act. Once an act is passed by the assembly or the parliament, then the government secretaries, government officials make annexures to that. They are called the rules. Rules need not be approved by the parliament or assembly, but rules have to be prepared by the, there will be legal department in all governments. These legal departments will have secretary level officials and junior level officials. They will prepare, even, advocates may be there, even a government leader may be there. All these people may be attached to the legal department, and Attorney General also is there in Government of India, and in state level also sometimes government attorney may be there. All these people together discuss, and the law department publishes what is called the rules. So first is the bill, second is the act, third is the rules. We call it as the rules and regulations. These rules and regulations will be published by the government. The act as well as the rules and regulations will be published by the government in Gazette. If it is a state government, it is a state Gazette, and if it is the central government, it is a central Gazette, Gazette of India. And there are certain people who are having the right to have Gazette. They will be given the Gazette, and these people used to be called the gazetted officers. Especially at the government level, only gazetted officers are there. But nowadays, gazetted officer is only a rank. Even college teachers are government college teachers are gazetted officers, and of course, it's only a rank given. But earlier, in the British period, a gazetted officer always used to have a gazette with them. So now we are only having an extension of that. And once the rules and regulations are published, after a while, the government or cabinet may come up with certain new notifications. These are also called, maybe the government secretary will come up with further explanation. These are all called the government notifications. So notification is the last thing, and all these things are actually orders. Orders which the public will have to attend. So bill is not an order, an act is an order, rules and regulations are orders, the GOs, government orders are there, the notifications are there, then special notifications may be there. Then in case where the government is not having the time to pass in the assembly or the parliament, the cabinet will take a decision and they'll get, if it's a state government, they'll get a permission of the governor for a short period till the assembly meets. If it is a central government, they'll take a permission. The cabinet will take the permission of the president till the parliament meets. In that case, with the temporary permission of the governor or the president of India, it is called an ordinance. An ordinance will have a period stipulated in the ordinance. Ordinance is not forever. For example, it is like the provisional certificate of the university. When the provisional certificate is given, there is a rule. Whenever you get a regular certificate, the provisional certificate ipso facto will be cancelled. So whenever there becomes an act, the ordinance will get nullified. This is a primary understanding regarding what is an act, what is a rule and regulation, what is a notification, what is an ordinance, etc. I think it is all clear to you. And Environmental Protection Act 1986 is now, even now, remaining as the Bible of the environmental laws in India. And even before that, we used to have some laws. Say, for example, we had a Water Act in 1974, Air Act in 1981, Noise Act. Actually, the full name of these acts are different. Say, for example, Water Pollution Act, the full name will be Water Prevention of Pollution Act 1974. Why that dash is put is, many times it had been amended thereafter. Even then, the first act stands. Amendment acts may be there. So, for example, the Indian Constitution has been amended so many times, more than 100 times it has been amended. And every time it is amended, we will say Amendment 51 to the Constitution of India. And to amend the Constitution, there is a special provision. Two-third majority of the Parliament should be there. It is not like making a simple act. Amendment of a Constitution needs more support from the Parliament, because Dr. B.R. Ambedkar made it very specific that just a majority should not amend the Constitution of India. So the two-third majority is compulsory. So only if that mandate is there, very rarely the Constitution gets amended. Only in these many years. In average, only 2 amendments in a year for the Constitution so far. Even not 2, 1 point something only. So that is what it really happens. So we had a lot of rules. The Water Act, Air Act, Noise Act, Hazardous Substance Act, Ozone Depleting Substance Act 2000. All these acts are still more are there. Indian Forest Act 1927. This was made even when the Britishers were there. Only amendments were given there. And of course, the Forest Conservation Act 1980, Joint Forest Management Circular. Circular is a notification. Circular is not an act, it's a government notification. And government notification are also valid provided they come in the ambit of the Constitution. That right the government is having. Government can issue any order which will be standing in the wake of the Constitution of India. Okay. Then the Wildlife Protection Act 1973, the CRZ, Coastal Regulatory Zone Act 1991, then the Aquaculture Authority Notification 1997, then the biosafety and recombinant DNA guidelines. This is very important because this prevents making people artificial life form. You are not supposed to make an artificial life form. That means you cannot make another human being without the parent available in our country or elsewhere. So even DNA Act is very. Say for example, there was a case in USA, very long case when Anand Chakrabarti produced a bacteria. He produced a new organism and he applied for patent. It was in the federal court for long years because as per the federal rules of the US US government, nobody can make a new life form. Ultimately, Anand Chakrabarti got the license for that bacteria because he said it is not a new life form, it is a mutation of an existing life form. An existing life form, a bacteria he mutated so that the new bacteria can eat up oil. That bacteria has been cultivated, and a big culture of that bacteria had been necessary because it is even now used for eating up the oil spills in the seas. Anyway, Anand Chakrabarti got that acceptance. But even now, making a new living organism is not permitted in most of the countries. Of course, making a new living organism, you have to start from the fundamental concept of protoplasm and cytoplasm and all those things. It's not that easy, but still. Then the biological act of 2002, all these do. Then we have certain notifications on the formation of pollution control board at the central level, central pollution control board and state pollution control board. Then EIA Act was there, Environmental Impact Act, and it's continued. The EIA Act had a lot of notifications following it. Then eco labeling, eco labels are there. For example, if you see a pot, an earthen pot picture, it is an eco labeling. Similarly, you would have seen the food quality grading, FPA grading. These are all eco grading which are given to different purposes. And then there are certain procedural laws. Procedural laws means they are not basically an act, but they are laws made for the working of the system, but within the constitutional permission. For example, the Constitution 11th and 12th schedules are concerned with the environment protection. Then there have been appellate authorities formed, and the Green Tribunal has been formed in India, and the Southern Green Tribunal was at Chennai. You would have heard about it. They used to discuss. They were the only appellate committee at that time to discuss environment-related cases. So in many states there are green courts, there are eco courts or environmental courts like that. In some of the Western countries, there are specific jury level committees for dealing with environmental issues, because other than the judges and justices, there will be local environmentalists also in that committee. That is there in many countries, but in India, we don't have any environmentalists in any of these committees, but environmentalists are normally appointed as inspection commission. For example, you would have heard about the Gadgil committee report, Kasturi Rangan committee report. Gadgil is a biological scientist and Kasturi Rangan is a space scientist, but they have been heading committees on environmental issues. Similarly, the Public Liability Insurance Act, it is an insurance act, not an environmental act. When environmental hazards do happen, this is in the wake of the Cobalt Gas Tragedy and so many other tragedies which followed. And this is regarding insurance, that 1991. Then Indian Penal Code, IPC and CPC are two things which the police department is always. So any legal action by the police is always dependent on the IPC and the CPC. Many of us are not aware of the provisions in this. For example, sometime back when I was saying somebody that an individual has got the right to arrest another individual, people are not believing. But as per Indian Penal Code, it is permitted. An individual, say for example, I can arrest another individual, even by force, if I feel that he is going to do an antisocial activity. Say I am seeing a person who is trying to plant a bomb in a vehicle. If I know that it is a bomb, I have got the right to take the help of anybody and forcibly arrest that individual. And because I have got the citizen's right to impose upon. So this is supposed to say, for example, if you are seeing somebody trying to kill another person, you have got every right to arrest him and produce before a court of law or produce before the police force. But before doing it, assure that you are on the safe side. Okay, because people who do crime will always have brutal power that is inbuilt in them. It's not the size that matters. People do crime have brutal powers attached to their minds, not to their body. That you have to be very careful. Then the provisions of the factories have to have been explained many times by many notifications. So these are all some of the things which are in general about the legal issues. Then something about the Stockholm Conference. It was the first UN conference on environment. Some of the conferences like this, UN conferences, are very popular. One is the Montreal Accord, the Kyoto Protocol, the Stockholm Conference, the Paris Conference. I think these names you will remember. Some of them I discussed earlier also. And this is the first among them. The focus was on the state of the global environment and its issues. I told in the early 70s, people started bothering about the environment. Till then, nobody bothered because environment never did any harm to us and we never did much to trouble the environment. But nowadays, we are doing it. Nowadays, the industries have grown to such a level. Even though the lockdown period, we have not been working most of the industries, even by our electronic gadgets, we have been spoiling. We have been throwing out a lot of electronic gadgets in this lockdown period and buying new ones. Even that adds to the waste repository of the earth. You are adding to it. And of course, the conference also emphasized on solving environmental problems and also linking it with social economic development policy factors. We have seen the pillars of sustainability. All these concepts emerged in the 70s after the Stockholm Conference. And India was a major signatory and player in this conference. And this conference laid the foundation for environment legislation in most of the countries, including India. And of course, the Environmental Protection Act came up in 1986, as you know. It was on November 1986, that the act was enacted. And it was passed to provide for the protection and improvement of environment and any matters concerned with. And EPA has got a special provision. If something is not applicable as per it, it can be extended to that by a notification of the government. It is specifically given in the act that something is not contained in it, we can extend the act to include that also by a government notification. The Act gives certain powers to the central government and state government. The Ministry of Environment and Forest of the Government of India, the Ministry of Environment and the Ministry of Forest of the government, state governments, and the Central Pollution Control Board, and the Green Tribunals, and the State Pollution Control Board, and in some states the biodiversity boards are there, including Kerala. In Kerala, we have got what is called a biodiversity board. All these boards have been specified powers given by the Environment Protection Act. Then it is an umbrella act or an umbrella legislation, means it covers all other legislations but without interfering in it. For example, the Air Act is still valid, but most of the relevant parts in the Air Act are contained in the EPA Act, and the EPA Act is available on the internet in the full form. If you want to read the EPA, Environmental Protection Act, you can see it on the internet. It is free. It is freely available in PDF form. Now, with this basic introduction, we will see a video. Bindu, are you there?
Yes, sir. I'll play the video.
Okay, okay.
Can you? So can you stop presenting so that I can present the video here?
Yeah. 1 minute, I'm stopping.
Okay, okay.
I have stopped.
Now, this topic is all about environmental protection in India. See, Government of India has made an effort to ensure that the environment in India is protected, and we have also ensured that the animals, if we can stop the animals from becoming extinct. So there are various acts and regulations which have been placed by the Government of India. Let's have a look on it. Okay. So the first one here is the laws for environmental protection. So what are the acts which have been enacted here? The first is your Wildlife Protection Act under 1972. Then you have the Water Prevention and Control of Pollution Act, which is amended in 1974 and 1988. You also have your Environmental Protection Act of 1986 and the Forest Conservation Act of 1980, which was amended in 1988. And then you have your Hazardous Waste Act of 1989. See, all these acts have been enacted to ensure that the wildlife is protected, the environmental pollution is in control, and also that the water is preserved. Okay, so there has been, these have been the various acts which have been enacted. Now further, in terms of regulations, there has been administrative orders and policy guidelines which have been laid down by the government of India. Now, if you are not able to follow, or if you are violating any of the laws which have been mentioned under these acts, then you are subject to severe penalties and fine. Remember, a separate department has been constructed, which is a Department of Environment, which was created in 1980. Okay, we also have an environmental minister who specifically looks into the matters of environment. Now, apart from this, the government of India have some regulatory body and the quasi-judicial authorities which have been established for certain things. What were those things? For national afforestation. Now see, deforestation is cutting trees across the forest. So you're actually removing trees, and the forest which was there, you're removing the entire forest for creating the land for development. Okay, now afforestation is opposite of deforestation, wherein you're planting trees and creating forest. So there has been a regulatory body which is the National Afforestation and Development Board of India. Okay, so these are basically responsible for ensuring that the greenery is maintained, so that the environment, especially the air, is cleaner. Apart from that, we have the National Wasteland Development Board, which ensures that the quality of the soil is maintained. Okay. Apart from that, the government has also laid down an environmental action plan to ensure that the quality of air, water, and soil doesn't degrade much. That brings us to the end of the video. Now,
Sir, I have,
Okay, you have listened to a video which pardon?
no, I just said that I
You
have
can see the
presented, sir.
template, no? It is visible to everyone, no? It is visible to me. Okay. So let us see what are the major definitions as per the EP Act. EP Act has got many sections which are the earlier parts up to parts 5, 6, so many definitions are there. And in part 5, section 2A, the term environment is defined. I'm not showing the EP. I have got the full EP Act with me, but it is so many pages. It cannot be shown here. It is in PDF form. You can download it from the net. It is freely available. So in section 5.2, it is defined that environment includes water, air, and land, and the interrelationship which exists among and between water, air, and land, and human beings, other living creatures, plants, microorganisms, and property. Or if I want to define in a single statement, environment is the interaction between the flora and the fauna. Or it can be even more refined. The environment is the organic interaction between the flora and the fauna. That is enough. It contains everything. But maybe you will have to explain it to get its full meaning. I'm defining. This is my definition. It's not the definition which EPA gives. EPA definition you have seen. This definition is environment is the organic interaction between flora and fauna. It includes all human beings, all creatures, all plant species, everything, even microorganisms, insects, everything. Then what is an environmental pollutant? It is defined again in EPA. An environment pollutant means any solid, liquid, or gaseous substance present in such concentration as may be or tend to be injurious to environment. That means any content in the air or water or soil, if it can do some harm to the living organisms, whether it is animals or human being or plants, then we call it as an environmental pollutant. Then what is environmental pollution? Simply the presence of the pollutant, or it means the presence in the environment of the environmental pollutants. This definition you can remember, because this simply explains what is environment, its pollution, and pollutants. Next slide we will see. One of the advantage of the Environment Protection Act is that when an act is passed by the Parliament, the Government of India can act on it. That is why it is called an act. Because the court, especially the apex court in India, is the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court always interpret things by the Constitution, and if any act is there. So if something goes about against the Constitution, they'll see whether there is a Government of India Act which provides for it. So when the government has to be strict on pollution, it should either have a constitutional support or it should have a support of the act. Otherwise, the Supreme Court can quash it, can say that stop it. Because we are having a three-tier system where the judiciary and the executive and the legislature are having equal powers of its own. Judiciary means the Supreme Court, the High Court, and the other lower courts. Legislature means the Parliament, two houses of the Parliament, Lok Sabha, the Rajya Sabha, and the state legislature. In our Kerala, there is only one legislature, which is Legislative Assembly, whereas in some other states, maybe like Karnataka, there are two legislatures, Legislative Assembly and Legislative Council. So MLAs or MLCs are there. So if there are two councils, both have to approve, then only it can become an act. Similarly, in Parliament, both the upper house is the Rajya Sabha and the lower house is the Lok Sabha, both have to approve. And if such an act is there, Supreme Court cannot easily violate that. Supreme Court is the apex court which is bound to explain or interpret the Constitution of India and the acts passed by the Parliament of India. So Supreme Court cannot immediately overtake any of the acts like that. But if an act is contradicting the basic Constitution, Supreme Court can annul or quash that act. That is also possible. There have been such cases where some acts are contradicting the basic principles of Constitution, because the Bible for the Supreme Court is always the Constitution of India. They always work under the Constitution of India. So for judiciary, the Constitution of the country is even the Constitution amendment. It is against the constitutional provisions in the initial period, that can be quashed by the Supreme Court. This is a special power, but in such a cases, the Supreme Court should have the full bench. That full bench of the Supreme Court is called the Constitutional Board, because that full constitutional bench only can decide on a single bench, or a three-member bench cannot decide on matters of the constitutional changes, but they can decide on other things based on the Constitution of India. I think I'm complicating you with so many legal terms, but we have to understand all these things, because when we live in a country, we should basically know our rights and privileges. If we don't know our rights and privileges, that if a dog is incapable of barking or turning to someone, that dog will be always thrown a stone. So to equip ourselves strong, to stand in this society with powers, we should also have a knowledge of the legitimate rights of a citizen. Then only we can react whenever we have to react. That is why legal knowledge is always better for any citizen, and that is why the Indian Penal Code says that ignorance of the law is not an excuse. Keep in mind, ignorance of the law is not an excuse. So if you go into some court and plead that I was unaware of this law, you will not be excused. It is in your interest that you understand the law. If you don't know the law, ask somebody who knows the law. That is the rule of the land. Okay. Then coming to the general powers of the central government as per EPA, it can take all necessary measures for environment protection. So for example, if any other law or rule is contradicting with this, you can overtake that with this act, because it's a central act. Then coordinate the actions of the state government. Of course, in the state government, that the State Pollution Control Board has come, the State Biodiversity Board has come, the State Forest Tribunal has come. All these things will be implementing the Environment Protection Act. And then You can lay down standards of environment quality and pollutants at national level and state level. And you can execute nationwide programs, environment protection programs, pollution abatement programs, afforestation programs, prevention of deforestation programs. All these things we can have by this EPA. And we can also have restriction of areas of industries. That is how the zoning principles have come all over the country. Zoning principle means you can have some exclusive zone committed to industry, another exclusive zone for domestic purpose, for residential areas, another zone maybe for transportation or something like that, maybe another zone for quarrying or such things. Like that, we can have separate industrial zone, separate domicile areas, and separate waterways. All these are possible under the ambit of the EPA. Take for example, I had come across a case long back. Exactly don't remember the year in which it happened. There was a cement factory at a place called Dhoni. Dhoni is very famous. Dhoni waterfalls. Dhoni is in Palakkad district. Of course, very near to my house also. There was a cement factory there, and all the neighborhood people complained to the court and the State Human Rights Commission that the dust and sound of that cement factory is annoying them, is disturbing their sleep, and they are having so many respiratory problems. So the court appointed a commission, and the court asked my willingness whether I am willing to be commissioned to report. Since it was close to my place, I said I will report on it. So I went there with all the equipments required. I went there with a high volume air sampler. At that time, my college was not having a high volume air sampler, so I took it from the pollution control board. Then the noise reader was also there. Decibel meter is there, which you can read the noise level, and all the equipments wherein I can measure the particulate matter emission from the industry and noise level of the industry. I went there. Luckily, my students were also to help. We conducted detailed study on the noise levels in and around the industry, and the particulate emission and the carbon dioxide emission in and near the industry. And we found that the emission level and the noise level were permitted in an industrial zone. But this zone was not industrial zone. It was a highly residential zone with the next house on the adjoining compound wall. So we gave a report saying that this industry can be permitted in an industrial zone, but cannot be permitted in a residential zone. And of course, we had to refer the standards given in the EPA Act. What is the noise level in different zones? It is given in the EPA what all noise levels are permitted near an industry, away from an industry, in a residential area, in an industrial area, in a traffic area, example. So many, these are all given in tables. You can refer these things if you want to see the noise level. Similarly, the particulate matter emission, 100 meters from the industry, 200 meters from the industry, 300 meters from the industry, all these things are available in the tables, and based on that only we reported that this industry cannot be termed as a harmful industry, but in that area it cannot be permitted. And of course, the court accepted that. The court ordered the industries to be closed. I don't know exactly whether he shifted it to industrial area or not, because since my report was not in favor of that particular industry, he didn't contact me any further, and I didn't also contact them any further. Maybe if they are still bent upon continuing the industry, they would have got, they would have taken it to the industrial area. Might be, I'm not sure. Now, all this are possible because the EP Act is very strict on it. Okay. Now, coming to the next one, the central government may appoint officers. It can have even special officers. Even for a particular project, it can appoint a special officer. Say, for example, a particular industry or a project is coming in an area. The government can even appoint a special officer to prepare an environmental impact study. Many of the EIA reports are available on the internet. Anyway, EIA is going to be another chapter in our discussion, so I'm not discussing on it. We can prepare an EIA. To prepare an EIA, you should have experience on that, and you should have a license from the Pollution Control Board. You can prepare an EIA report and you can submit. Remember, preparing an EIA is a laborious work, but you will be well paid for. You can give the report, and accordingly, government can deny or allow the industry. Now, let us come to the next slide. The central government can issue directions to any person or officer on any authority for closure direction. Say, for example, an industry is working in your area and you have got a complaint on that industry, and the government is appointing some agency for scrutiny, and EIA is conducted, and the report is against the industry. You must be knowing that the Coca-Cola has been closed. Why? Because all the EIA, I was given funding by the government of Kerala and by an NGO based in Bombay to study that Coca-Cola, and I have given a detailed report. That report was referred by the government committee appointed for it, and the government committee gave the decision that this industry should be closed and compensation should be given to the neighboring people. And of course, like that, any government committee can take decision on matters related to environment by appointing single officer or an official committee based on the EP Act, so that that committee can study it in a scientific way. If it is an in-depth study, the government will provide you funding to study also. So, for example, to study the Coca-Cola, I was given funding. I didn't spend anything from my own pocket. So, like that, whenever you have to study extensive environmental studies on industries or projects, EP under the EP Act, funding is also possible. Of course, they will be very careful about funding aspect, but empowering government officials mostly is a common thing in most of the projects. And also the government can make rules to regulate environment pollution for the standards of quality of water, air, and see, water, air, and land without pollution are the benign rights of an individual. It's a gift from the nature. It's not an allotment from an individual. So we have got that birthright. And what is the maximum allowable limits of pollution? And what is the procedure for handling the hazardous substances? I don't know whether you are aware of how the hazardous substances are to be disposed. Say, for example, for some of the industries in Palakkad area, I used to be the consultant for disposing the hazardous waste. You know, hazardous waste disposal is a very lengthy process. You have to make a big trench. The trench has to be then put with HDP, high density polyethylene sheet, very thick sheet. That sheet thickness varies from half an inch to 1 inch. Sometimes even 5 millimeter thickness HDP sheet also may be used. For example, some years back I had to do such a process in Kerala Automobiles Limited, Kanjikot. Their factories there, and I've seen that. Is it Kerala Automobiles? It's an automobile company. There we had to use 10 millimeter thick HDP sheet, and this sheet 10 mm, and this sheet can be connected only by sheath welding technique. It is not by stitching or sheath welding technique is there. I don't know whether you are aware. HDP sheets are welded, waterproof, and then the sheet will be kept in the trench, and then the hazardous waste will be poured into this sheet, and then the sheet will be closed, and over the sheet, very 5 feet to 10 feet deep soil layer will be put, depending on the hazard of this waste. So such a procedure is there. All these procedures are explained in EP Act, and you have to follow that. If something is missing in the EP Act, it will be given either as an order by the Central Pollution Control Board or as a circular by the State Pollution Control Board. So there are definite procedures for this. And anybody who wants to go deep into consultancy will have to study all these things one by one. And you don't have to by heart every provision in the EP Act. Whatever work you say, for example, you have to dispose hazardous waste. You just study the provisions in the EP Act for hazardous waste. Now, of course, hazardous waste management rules and act is there, another one. You have to study both. Based on both, you will have to take care of the disposal of the waste. So pleading ignorance that I don't know is not acceptable. You have to study the EP Act. In the EP Act, it is referred what is given in the Hazardous Waste Management Act. That also you have to follow. And it has been, if there is any revision nowadays it is very easy, because earlier, if you wanted to get an act, we had to write to the concerned organization. They should send it us, and many times, of course, even before the internet came, transfer was not possible. We had to go and collect from some libraries. Like that, difficulty was there. But nowadays, all these acts and almost all the IS codes, the Bureau of Indian Standards is having 10,000 plus IS codes. Most of these codes are available on the internet, and most of them free. Only some of them you have to pay. Most of them are freely available. So we are in a very convenient position where all the acts and codes are available to us for supervising this. Let us see the next slide. And of course, no individual or no industry has got the right to pollute. That is why the EPA Act says that everybody should have a pollution control mechanism. Say, for example, the waste produced in your house, you are throwing out to the road, not to a dustbin kept by the local authority, you are doing a criminal offense. I don't know how many of you know it. Throwing away the waste in the public road is a criminal activity. But many times this is done. I still remember a case. It was long back when I was when I was staying at Tiruvandhuram. Here I don't exactly remember. I changed my residence from. I was having my quarters at Perurkada. Then I purchased a house at Palkulangara. I wanted to shift the luggage from my quarters to official quarters to my own house. I chose midnight for the transit because then only the labor unions will not disturb us. So I asked my staff, our college staff, I asked them, around 10 of them were ready by midnight, and they brought some small lorries and packed everything, and they went in front, and I behind them in the car. And when I reached very close to my house at Palkulangara, I saw that in the main road, one car is stopping. It may be around 2 o'clock at midnight. A good car, and it's a sedan car, is stopping and one door is opening. The right side door is opening. And a big plastic bag is thrown out of it onto the middle of the road. That was the time when waste collection was stopped in the Trivandrum city by the Vilapalchala issues and strike and such things. And I was just thinking, this man who has come in a very good sedan car must be in a well-to-do family. He couldn't find any place other than the main road at Palkulangara in front of the Palkulangara UP school. And he has thrown this at the midnight, and the next day, so many hundreds of students are supposed to come into that school. And this is our sense of hygiene. See what has happened? He could have had a simple system in his household, or he could have arranged somebody. He has got this much enough to come in the midnight. If that amount he paid to someone, they would have thrown it out to some waste dumping area, or they would have given to some waste collecting bins or something like that. Anyway, this is our culture which we keep here. That is why in environmental engineering we say the NIMBY technique, not in my backyard, but somebody else's backyard. That is what is called NIMBY, NIMBY, not in my backyard. This is a dictum which we follow in solid waste management. Somebody else's backyard or even somebody else's front yard is all right for us, but not in my house because it smells, it stinks. But somebody else's house it is stinking, no problem. They only have to bear. This can be stopped. I'm just quoting that even that is a punishable offense. If I could have taken that photograph of that man and reported to legal authority, it is bound to be punished. But whether it will be punished or not, that is a different thing. I'm saying that maybe I don't know whether people are aware of these things, but it is a rule. Then monitoring authority can carry out inspections anywhere. Say, for example, the monitoring authority in Kerala or the Kerala State Pollution Control Board. Kerala State Pollution Control Board can come to any industry and check any time. They can come without. I'll again quote one example. This is regarding a company at Palakkad district. It is on the Pollachi road. Name of the company I'm not telling right now because I don't want to entangle them in any other issues. This is a well-known company and its owner is pretty rich. He is having so many industries as well as philanthropic institutions. One day, the local people, some NGOs were telling me that the pollution is too much there, so you should intervene. Then I said, okay, I'll intervene. I informed the company people, the company manager, that I'm just coming there. And of course, it's only on request by the NGOs. There is no legal information to me. I'm not coming as a statutory officer. I'm just coming to make a casual visit. I want to see your pollution control equipments. And I want to explain to the local public that if you are having very good pollution control equipments, I want to explain it to the local public. So I went on my own, and some of the NGO has also joined me. Some local leaders, some Panchayat level leaders also joined me, and I visited that industry, and they have shown me their scrubbers, their electrostatic precipitator in the small form, and also all their blowers were there. Everything was working perfectly well, and I couldn't see any dust or dirt or anything around. It was pretty clean. Then I asked the NGOs who came with me why they are doing it, And I asked them how much electricity you spend for working these mechanisms. They told that they spend around 1 lakh units per day, 1 lakh units of electricity per day for working these machines for the pollution control board. Because that is pretty small, because they spend more than 20 lakhs units of electricity a day for the production of their product is a metallic alloy, which is even exported. So they spend around 5% of the electricity they are spending for the machines. So I came back very comfortably. I came back. Then that day night, I got phone call from the local people saying that, sir, they have cheated you. Now they have not switched on any of the pollution control equipments, and see what is happening. And of course, that time the executive engineer in the pollution control board was my classmate. I informed her also, this is happening now. Today I have visited there, but now I got this report. Why can't you visit there tomorrow? She said, anyway, you can also visit, I will also visit. And I went there in the morning. I found that what the local people told were very correct. That the area was full of dust and dirt, and none of the pollution control equipments were working. And I came to know that a bit later, the pollution control officials also visited there. They took action on that. Anyway, for some period, that industry was working all its pollution control equipment. So pollution control, we are avoiding out of greed. We can control. This one caught of, so under the EP Act, action was taken against them. Nowadays, I don't know what is the position, because I have not gone to that industry thereafter, because there's a risk also. To give a negative report against an industry, quite naturally, when you go the next time, you may be manhandled. That is there. Otherwise, you should go officially with police protection. Anyway, I never went there again. Though the owner invited me once more, I didn't go. This I'm quoting because these things are happening. Now let us see the next slide. These are all this. See, I told that company. I went the next day. Without any authority. Actually, I went. First day I went as a guest. Next day I went without any authority. Obviously, since the pollution control board came and took the action, I didn't act any further. But I have got every right as a public, as a citizen, to complain against that industry by producing the photographs and by producing the documents and by producing the report of what I feel correct. Because if I give a report, maybe the court of law may accept it, because I've been appointed by the court many times for such cases. That can happen. So if there are some among you teachers who have got license of the State Pollution Control Board or Central Pollution Control Board, or who have got some reports of such nature to their credit, advise you that you can involve in your local issues to make sure that the environment, don't think that the air which is around, this industry was around 25 kilometers away from my house. So don't think that it is far away. Why should I worry? Because we all have got a locus standi, we all have got a social commitment where environment is not anybody's private property, it is a common property. So stringent penalties and punishments should be imposed on the people who contravene these acts. That the government is very particular now. I know that many places this will be diluted. Most of the environment protection acts and rules and regulations may be diluted many places by the power of money. But don't generalize it. There are people still in society. There are people still among us who cannot be bribed and who cannot be taken for granted. I still remember an experience when long back, one owner of a steel industry was coming to me and offering huge bribes, saying that I should give a report in favor of his industry. See, there are people like that, but don't think that all the owners and all the officials are like that. No, we can change, and we have to change. If one among the 10 are committed to the cause, the society will change. Not only on environment pollution aspects, on every aspect. If there are some committed people, things can change, and things should change. Okay. Then defaulter companies and corporates, of course, they have to be brought under the. I still remember a case where I visited an industry in Ernakulam. There's a big carbon factory at Ernakulam. And I visited not as an inspection commissioner. I visited that industry for a state level program being conducted. We want that industry to join hands with us. When we went there, we moved inside. We went without any information to them because we were not an official committee. I went there along with some other senior officials working in the engineering area. We went there and they received us. And by the time we returned from that industry, the shirt and pants were full of carbon dust. So what about the people living in that near vicinity? Anyway, since we were not an official delegation, we didn't report it. But I just guessed if this carbon factory is working there for this carbon dust, which we call as soot, SWT, soot particles. It was covering all the body, and within we were there only for half an hour. Within half an hour, if this could happen, for the people who are staying there 24 hours, what it will be doing? If there is anybody from here in this group who are staying near that carbon factory in Ernakulam, you can see what is the impact of that. This can happen. So such acts are required. So rules are required and rules have to be enacted. Rules have to be empowered and rules have to be enforced. Otherwise, no, it's of no use. See the next slide. The salient features of the act. I think this is an an abstract of what I've been telling so far about the imposition of the act, about the CPCB, about the CPCB means Central Pollution Control Board, KSPB, about the State Pollution Control Board, or simply say as the PCB and the authority, etc. This is a gist of what I have discussed so far. So we come to the next slide. One thing I want to say is that the environmental rules and regulations are not applicable for private industries alone. It is equally applicable for even corporate sector, for government sector, for public sector industries. All this it is applicable. No industry has got any right to pollute the atmosphere which is belonging to the entire population. So don't think that only private industries have to do that. No. Many of the public industries, of course, they will not do such mischief for saving the money. In public industries, nobody has got any concern about spending. So if they have got the equipment, they will run it. The problem there is many of the equipments will not be running. In private industries, the equipments will be running, but they will switch off because they maintain the equipments properly. In public industries, equipments will not be running and nobody will be concerned about repairing it. It's like the old saying that everybody thought everybody else will do it and nobody did it. So it happens like that. That is what is happening in public sector. Now, this is an umbrella legislation because it covers almost all the rules. It covers the hazardous waste rules 1989, biomedical waste rules 1998, municipal solid waste rules 2000, noise pollution rules 2000, ozone depleting rules 2000. I think all these rules have the battery waste rules 2001, plastic waste rules 2011, electronic waste rules 2011. All these rules, of course, are briefly covered or are under the umbrella of EP Act. But for example, when the electronic waste rules was formed in 2011, the provisions in the EP Act was expanded because electronics has developed a lot after 1986. In 1986, there were no laptops available. Laptops were very rare. But now in 2011, laptops have become an order of the day. So the electronic waste rules were modified when it came to not only laptops, so many other equipments. Gadgets are coming every day, and somebody has told that after 20 years from henceforth, most of the devices which you are using now will not be used at all. And of course, I think after 20 years, I will not be keeping a laptop in front of me. Instead, I will be keeping my palm in front of me, which will work as a laptop because it will be connected to some IC chip. So it can happen like that. So we don't have to carry any equipment in our hands. From anywhere, wherever we are, we can use our palm, the hand palm, to work as a laptop. And we can have a virtual keypad on it. So the world is changing. And I think last class I was talking that one of my dreams has come true, that electricity is being transmitted by wireless method. Yesterday I read an article that New Zealand has started trial on it. See how world is changing. It's only a trial run. Let it be. Maybe, I don't know when India is going to have a trial run. So things will change. Now coming to the next slide. Of course, this is explanation. This includes everything. Under this, so many notifications have come. One of the most prominent among them is the CRZ notification, Coastal Regulatory Zone. It was revised later, but the notification is still valid. CRZ notification. Then, so many cases have come up in the High Court and Supreme Courts based on so many other notifications came. Dehanu Taluka in Maharashtra, Then Matheran in Maharashtra, sensitive zone. These two are sensitive zones. Then the Mahabaleshwar in Tamil Nadu, eco-sensitive zone. And even Gadgil committee report is going on in Kerala, and we are waiting for the revised notification on the eco-sensitive zone in and economically environmentally fragile zone also in Kerala. So of course Kerala there is not of opposition. So basically the notification on fly ash, then EIA notifications in different places. EIA notifications, uh, EIA stands for Environment Impact Assessment notification in different parts of the country. Now let us see the next. And these legal things are more required for people. So many court cases have come. I told that thousands of court cases are there. These are some of the court cases which have been in the newspapers and in the media. I am not going to read the list when you are supplied the. These are some samples which I have taken from national media, which are very one among the most important among this is the Ganga water pollution case, and another one is the Agra Taj Mahal declaration case. There are so many such environmental related cases which are taken up by the state high courts and apex court or the Supreme Court, and you can go through it. Some more list I am giving. Just see the next one. These are list. I am not reading the list because I told that these are some of the cases which have come up in the High Court or the Supreme Court, which have attracted much of the media attention, and so many such cases are going on. Right. Next one, please. See some more cases. You know that all these cases are available on the internet because Indian Law Journal, which is the most prominent publication in law, Indian Law Journal, ILJ. If you go to some advocate's office, you will see they will bind it and keep it as a showcase. It's a monthly journal, but annually they will bind it and keep it in their showcase. But nowadays it's not necessary. Most of the Indian law journals are available in the internet. Whenever I wanted to give a case in the High Court, the first thing I do is to refer on the net the Indian Law Journal and the past judgments. This will be very much helpful to us because then only you will know whether your stand is right or wrong. So if at all, not only environmental, any other matter, any case, if you feel that justice has not been done to you and you want to react to that, first thing is give the keywords of your case and refer the internet. You will get a judgment of the Supreme Court or High Court connected to that from the Indian Law Journal. And nowadays, even the court is publishing it. Court repository is there. For example, in Kerala High Court, most of the cases, maybe in some of the cases, my name also may be there. In all such cases, you can see even now the court is publishing the case and its judgment. That is very much helpful to us because we know whether we are on the wrong path or the right path. See the next one. And next is what is called the environment protection rules. Rules are, I told what is the difference between rules and the act. Act is passed by the parliament. Rules are prepared by the concerned government department. Say, for example, the rules will be prepared by the law department or by the environment department. A department will be entrusted, whether at the government of India level, and then the cabinet approves it, and then it becomes a rule. For the rule, it's not necessary that, but rules should conform to the act. Rule should not violate the act. The rule can be published thereafter in the Gazette and it becomes a public property thereafter. So rules also will be referred by the courts of law to interpret the provisions of an act. It is like, say, Muslims will be knowing that there is a Quran, which is a holy book, and there are so many hadiths. So Quran is like an act and hadith is like the rule. Hadith explains what is in the Quran. Quran is a holy book which is supposed to come from the Prophet directly, whereas Hadith is not from the Prophet. The Prophet has not given any Hadith. Hadith, of course, the best known Hadith among them, I have only read one book on Hadith, that is Al-Bukhari. Very comprehensive Hadith, bigger than Quran. So there are so many Hadiths like that, which explains what is to be done as per Quran. So rules and regulations explain what is to be done by the act. That's it. I'm not explaining it verbatim, no need, because this is being given to you. And also, don't think that when you listen a session, that is enough. No. And the biggest thing we can do is to learn. Learning never happens by listening. Learning happens only 20% by listening. It only facilitates to you what things you have to read for where what knowledge is available. So it gives only an umbrella of where the knowledge is available. Whether it's a teacher or a student, if you are really interested in a particular topic, you have to read and learn or listen and listen. Nowadays, listening is more easy because so many listening materials are available. You can just put your earphones and listen to it. And of course, maybe reading gives a better sense to you because you know its spelling, you know its usage, etc. Whereas listening, your language skill may not, only spoken skill may improve, but written skill may not improve. Anyway, coming to the next slide. So all these acts and rules will have so many schedules attached to, say, for example, even the constitution is having schedule. You know that in India we have got certain communities specified as scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. In my young days, I didn't know what is a schedule. I was quite doubtful about what is a scheduled caste and what is a scheduled tribe. But late, when I was studying for the degree, I understood that scheduled caste and scheduled tribe means their list is included in the schedule published by the government. The schedule which is appended to the constitution. So the schedules which are appended will be having, that is published by the government of India and is modified time to time. There are certain communities specified. Those communities are called. There are communities which are given as tribes and castes. They are given known as scheduled communities or scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. So similarly, there are schedules based on the act for noise levels. For example, a noise level, say a very silent noise level, maybe around 30 decibels. Decibel is the unit for measuring. Bell unit is, logarithmic unit. So, for example, 1 decibel to bell conversion. The conversion is always logarithmic. So, 1 decibel, 2 decibel, the ratio is almost 10 times the intensity. 3 decibel, it is 100 times the intensity. So, if one sound is 1 decibel and another sound is 2 decibel, 3 decibel, you keep in mind that the 3 decibel sound is having 30 times the intensity because it is 10 multiple. It's a common logarithm multiple. 30 times the intensity of the first one. That is why the sound intensity, maybe 30 to 40 decibels intensity in the vicinity will not affect us. Whereas if the motorcycle is starting, it may go up to 130 decibel intensity. And if you are standing near the silence of a motorcycle when it is starting, you will have definitely a dampening effect. And a jet plane taking off may have 130 to 140 decibels, sometimes going up to 150, 160 range. It will be dangerous. Something which crosses 150 can even spoil the membrane of your ears. So that is why in residential zone we don't advise any decibel intensity more than 50, 60 range. When 50, 60 is high, the murmuring of a leaf may be around 20 to 30 decibels. And the working of a small industry at a distance may be around 40, 50 decibel. But running of a vehicle nearby may be around 60, 70, up to 90 decibels. So there has to be a limit for everything. Sound intensity, then emission intensity. Every 6 months you have to, now it is changed to 1 year. As per the central government rule, every 1 year you have to check the emission of your vehicle. And now the Bharat 6 model is coming where the emission standards are very, very specific. Earlier we never used to have the Bharat standards for emission. Now Bharat 1, Bharat 2, Bharat 3. These are all limitations for your carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, and CH and NH compounds. CH means carbohydrate compounds. NH means nitrogen and hydrogen combined compounds. All these compounds, there are limits now prescribed, and of course the EPA gives the limits for all these things in different areas. Whenever there's a legal issue, EPA is referred. Now coming to the next one. Now Indian Constitution also in many articles, say for example Article 39, Article 48, Article 51. In these articles there are mention about the environmental protection to be done. So these acts also will be interpreted by the court when it comes to. So 2, 3 slides I have given the clauses where the Indian Constitution is also not silent on environment related activities. I don't want to trouble you with so much of legality. So one by one you can skip these slides. There, anybody who wants to go for a legal study on environment or want to prepare a legal report, then you can study these things in detail. So next slide we will see now. Again, some provisions. This statement you can keep in mind. Most of the constitutional developments and judicial interpretations that have put environmental conservation and stewardship at the hub of resource governance are a post-1970 phenomenon, more of an afterthought not having figured in at the time of the making of the Constitution. So when Constitution was made in the 40s, we were not having these issues. You know, all the pollution issues came up only after the 70s. So many of the amendments and the EPA of 1986 were made as a consequence to the provisions in the Constitution. So Constitution is not loud enough to take care of the pollution. That is why so many acts and rules have come. Please skip. Next one. These are all some of the provisions in the Constitution and other acts have come. Please, next one. Those who are in depth interested in these things can go through it. Next one. This statement you can take care of. Rapid economic growth can intensify environmental degradation. That is what is happening. The solution does not lie in slowing growth, since slow growth also tends to its own form of environmental degradation. Why? Because if the growth is less, the famine will be higher. People will die out of scarcity of food. So that is also not acceptable. With rapid growth, we can also have the resources to prevent and deal with environmental problems. So they should go hand in hand. So always environmentalists should keep in mind that the biggest environmentalist in Kerala, she used to travel only by air-conditioned car. Why? She wants the comfort. So most of us are like that. I also don't deny it. I talk a lot of environment, but while traveling by car, I always use the air conditioner because I don't like wind coming and hitting my face. So we should have a compromise. So we have to. So if I am buying a car, I should take care that I should buy the most fuel efficient car, so that I am polluting the environment the least. Because I know that even if the cost in involvement is a bit more, buying a better car with less pollution is the better way to safeguard the environment. If I cannot travel by a car without that facility, so we should have a compromise on things. I'm not saying we cannot now avoid plastic. All your clothes are plastic, terry cotton, nylon. All these are polyester. All these are plastics only. Can we throw it out? Not possible. We have to adjust with. So when we buy a shirt, I'm still having shirts 25, 30 years old with me. I don't want to throw it out. Why? Because I'm adding to the pollution to the nature. Keep it with us. Maybe you're not using always, but once in a while you can use it. So there has to be a balance between comfort and environment. This is what is understood. Okay, next one, please. Again, laws and administration. I'm not discussing this much, mostly legal framework. Next one we are seeing. I think our slides are getting. Next one, please. Yes, skip it. I don't want to confuse you with so many legal terms. Now we will come to the next topic of the day. Before starting our video on this, I just want you to come to the chat box. Please come to the chat box. I have some simple questions to ask. You can give me, you can put the answers. What is ISO? Many of you would have heard about ISO. I just want to see how many of you know the basics of these things which I'm going to discuss. Those who know can give me the full form. What is ISO? Come to the chat box. Yes, Bobby. Not Bobby, Baby Tessie, Shailesh Kumar, Sitara Praveen, Tejas S. Everybody mentioned International Organization for Standardization, International Standard Organization, International Organization for Standardization. Okay. Yes, Pajisha, Adira Krishan, Shibin, Jemshia, Shruti, Anjana, Ashwinraj, Raki. I think that is enough. You have told. So most of you know what is ISO. Have you heard about EMS? Maybe you would have heard about EMS, the politician, EM Shankar Nambudiri part. But EMS in environmental terms, have you heard about? What is EMS? Yes, Shailesh Kumar, Environmental Management System. Okay. Bushra, again, Environmental Management System. Shruti, Raki, okay. Yes, Environmental Management System. Now, have you heard about any organization which is having an EMS? You have heard about many organizations. Have you heard about any organizations having an EMS? Give the name of an organization having an EMS. Name of any organization you know which is having an EMS. In your life, you would have come across many industries. No one knows. No one knows. That means your industrial exposure is limited. Let me ask another question. Have you heard about ISO 9000? What is it for? ISO 9000 represents what? ISO 9000 represents what? Or for what it is given? There are so many things in 9000, 9001, 9002, 9003, but all this generally conform to a particular aspect. What is that aspect? Nobody knows? Yes, Akhilesh has come up with quality management. Ashwin Raj, family of quality management system. Anjanar, international standards on quality management. Yes, I appreciate. Then Tejas, quality management standard for companies and organizations. Sri Lakshmi, quality management. Abhin K quality. All these are correct if you are linking it to quality. All the ISO 9000 series are linked to quality. Then have you heard about ISO 14000? It is linked to what? ISO 9000 is linked to quality. What is ISO 14000 linked to? ISO 14000, 14000. Bushra says customer satisfaction. Sri Lakshmi says environment management. Then Sitara says environment. Adira Krishna says environment management. Yes. As 9000 is to quality, 14000 is to environment. We will discuss that in detail later. Now I was checking where you stand, whether you are understanding the things which I am saying. Here we have got students and teachers. Of course, the level of understanding or gulping of different groups may be at different level. But anyway, you are knowing the basics. Now let us come to a video which will be played right now.
ISO 14000 Environment Management System. ISO 14000 is primarily concerned with environmental management. In plain language, this means what the organization does to minimize harmful effects on the environment caused by its activities. Improving the environmental performance of corporations is one way of limiting environmental damage. Environmental management systems, EMSs, such as ISO 14001, provide a framework for organizations that wish to effectively manage their environmental affairs. Implementing an EMS that conforms to the ISO 14001 standard may help businesses integrate environmental values into their operations. An EMS can be described as a program of continuous environmental improvement that follows a defined sequence of steps drawn from established project management practice and routinely applied in business management. In simple terms, these steps are as follows. Review the environmental consequences of the operations. Define a set of policies and objectives for environmental performance. Establish an action plan to achieve the objectives. Monitor performance against these objectives. Report the results appropriately. Review the system and the outcomes and strive for continuous improvement. Not every system will present these steps in exactly the same way, but the basic principles are clear and easily understandable. The ISO 14000 series is a series of standards for different aspects of environmental management. A number of these standards relating to environmental management systems have been adopted formally by the members of the ISO, while others are in different stages of preparation. ISO 14000 is a group of standards covering the following areas: environmental management systems, environmental auditing, evaluation of environmental performance, environmental labeling, life cycle assessment.
Let us start the session on environment management standards and systems. As you know, EMS is a common word which is very popularly known to most of the people, which means environmental management system. It is a comprehensive, cohesive set of documented policies and procedures adopted by a facility or person and used to establish environmental goals, to meet and maintain those goals, to evaluate environmental performance, and to achieve measurable or noticeable improvements in environmental performance through planning, documented management, and operational practices, operational changes, self-assessments, and management review. I think I have sufficiently complicated with that long sentence, but now I'm not resorting to that sentence. Let me tell you what is it. EMS means you are deciding what are the measures you want to do for protecting the environment. First, you decide the measures to be done, and then you write down this as a record. Can be a hard copy or a soft copy on a computer, whatever it is. You write down this. They are called the procedures. Then these procedures you implement, and then that is the action part, and through that you better the environment, and it cyclically continues, and so that every year after year you are having a better performance in your, maybe yours is an industry or a trade or a business or a household or a farm, whatever it is. You have got set norms, which are the procedures. You implement, you record it, that is a document, and based on that document you work, you resort to that document. It is called conformation to the document. Conform. You conform to the document, and based on that you do it, and then you improve your environment, and it goes on continuing like a wheel moving forward. This is what is called environment management system. And in that system, we specify certain minimum requirements. Say, for example, we are specifying that the minimum number of trees we grow every year is 10. Or we specify that the minimum quantum of water we conserve is going to be this many liters. So that is a standard then. Or you are specifying that the quality of the drinking water which we are providing to the staff in our organization will be minimum with uh, a residual chlorine level of 1 milligram per liter, or say 0.1 milligram per liter. So you are specifying the minimum requirements, and that is what is the documentation part. So EMS in a nutshell is planning something, recording that, and doing that, and then continuing that. This is EMS. I think you got it. Environment management system. In that system, whatever is the minimum or maximum you define. Maximum also you can define. Say for example, you are defining that in your industry, the sound level will never be permitted to exceed 60 decibels. That case, you will have to use lubricants frequently. You will have to smear the machines, or you will have to apply grease. That is there. So that is all in the action part. But standards you are fixing up, or you are saying that at least minimum 5 cubic kilometer air space will be there in my industry for every worker. That means you are specifying the minimum requirement for air movement. That is then a standard. This is the meaning of it. I think when the meaning is clear of EMS, that is enough. Now, whatever I am going to discuss further is how we do it, how we plan it, how we check it. Now, come to the next slide. This I have explained. This I have explained, and of course, in this system, you just see the international standards operation 14001 standards are applicable to the system. Now, 14,000 series of ISO 14,001, 14,002, 14,003, etc. are related to environment. 14,001 is related to the system, environment management system. This we will be discussing. Our next session, next class will be on, not next week, the week after next will be on ISO 14,001, how it can be attained, etc. But remember, 14,001 is discussing about the EMS, how the EMS should be. That we will discuss there. Next one, please. The ISO is all about numbers and names or equals. No, that is not it. For example, we will be specifying so many numbers. Quality will be prescribing in quantitative terms. Quality, always it is better to prescribe in quantity, because otherwise it becomes so vague. So say for example, you are saying that we should not have high noise level in our surrounding. Very vague. But if you specify the noise level in the surrounding is limited to 70 decibels, it has got meaning. So it is always better to quantify the quality. That is a better system. Then only it becomes a system. Now see the next slide. This you can keep in mind. 9,000 series is discussed about quality management. 14,000 series is discussed about, is bothered about environmental management. 18,000 series is, these are all conforming to industry. That is why I am giving the list. 18,000 is concerned about safety management. This is also a series. It is concerned about OHSMS, Operational Health and Safety Management System. There is an association all over the world, OSHA, Operational Safety and Health Group. It is OSHA Group. And then ISO 28,000 is concerned about security management. Security management means the 18,000 is about safety management, operational one, when you operate it. Whereas 28,000 is about the general safety. Say for example, when you go for a atomic power plant, both the 18,000 and 28,000 are equally important. 18,000 is meant for the individual safety, whereas 28,000 is meant for the overall national safety. So all these things will come into picture there. See the next slide. This is what is we do. First thing is plan. We plan, this I told earlier, we plan what to do. then do what we plan, then check whether it is going. Checking is also called supervision or monitoring. Check whether it is going as per what is planned, and then act it. Whatever things are to be done, whatever hurdles are to be there, remove it, and then that cycle will continue. So plan, do, check, act is a quality motto everywhere. In any ISO handbook, you will see this motto: plan, do, check, act. This is the quality motto which every ISO department takes care of. Let us see the next slide. Why you should be interested in ISO or environment management system? Why should be interested in? I'm just explaining the terms the dictionary is having on interest. What all meaning of interest is? See the next slide. If you go to Oxford Dictionary or Cambridge Dictionary or Webster's Dictionary, you will see these terms. I have taken only from these three. One meaning is interest means it's a title, it's a right. For example, if I say I am having an interest over that property, landed property, it means I have got legal right on it. If you are saying that I am having an interest in that institution, it means you have got a title. You are the treasurer or you are the secretary. Or if you are saying I am having an interest in that company, you may having a share or a debenture or something like that. Or you can say that I am having an interest in the social welfare. That means you are having a participation of advantage. And if you are having interest in a company, that means you are having a concern about the growth of the company. See the next one. When you say that I am having interest in financial matters, that means you are paying somebody, you are paying interest on the money you have borrowed. And if you are having interest on some goods, it means that you have invested something in that for buying it. Your interest on that goods or capital. And above all, when we say we are having some interest in a person, maybe either you want to give him a hit or you want to do him some good. That may be the interest. So these are all meanings of dictionary meanings of interest. So what is our interest out of this in environment management system? Let us see the next slide. We may get these benefits if we do environment management. These are our interests. What is the first benefit? Operational efficiency. That means operational efficiency means we have to give less effort. Take for example, long back, one management scientist conducted an experiment on bricklaying. He found that if a person is trained in a particular system of bricklaying, the bricklaying number of bricks laid in a day can be increased from 500 to 2000 just by adopting a procedure system. He has to learn some ergonomic procedures so that he can change his bricklaying speed from 500 to 2000. So whenever you study a management system, there is a scope for improvement everywhere. So productivity may be improved, safety may be improved. For example, when I take a new place to stay, I always try to identify which area is good for what activity, which area is good for keeping which furniture. This is a thing which always any architect, especially an architect who is interested in internal furnishing, when he sees a space, he always sees the space from the utility point of view. In the environmental management system, each and everything we can say from the utility point of view so that we can save resources also. We can save water, we can save energy, we can save fuel, all these things we can save. Simple. Now today you go to your home and see the position of certain things. If it is changed, you will get more economically, you can get the things done. And whether sitting in a particular posture and sitting in another posture, which gives you more comfort, and sitting with somebody and sitting without somebody, which gives more comfort, and sitting, of course, doing a thing like that, doing a thing like this, which gives more comfort. So if you can codify these things into a standard system, you get what is called efficiency. So efficiency is the outcome of planning your activities. And if you well plan your activities, I always used to tell the students how they have to be efficient in studying, because When I was a BTech student, I had a dream to become the topper. So I did a lot of research on how you can become the topper. And at the end of it, I found out certain methods by which how I can sit for long time, how I can avoid my fatigue in study, how I can stop my distraction studies. And it got result also. And I was very happy. And of course, this you can do with yourself. And environmental management system, you can find out something by which the management can be easier. It reduces the resource, it reduces the expense on it, and it improves the productivity and efficiency. Then we say these are the benefits, and that is our interest. See the next slide. It's a management system. Of course, this is what I have told. It takes care of the overall management of the environment, the EMS. See the next slide. Once more. Click once more. Yes, click once more. Once more. I think that slide I have taken from another one, so it comes piecewise only. The previous one. Okay. These are the ISO 14,000 standards. There have to be 4 stages in it. The first stage is the policy stage. Second is the planning stage. Third is the implementation stage. And fourth is the checking stage. Checking stage also we call as the monitoring stage or measurement stage. In the planning stage, in the policy stage, we have to make an environment policy. This is normally important for an industry or an organization. For an individual or a household, this is not of much importance. But for an industry, you should have an environment policy. When we go for ISO 14,000 training, I think 1 or 2 industries I used to train the staff for ISO 14,000. Say, for example, IT Limited Kanchikot. When I gave them, I think over 1.5 decades back, when I gave them the first training on ISO 14,000, that time 14,000 was not common. The first thing I told them to do is make an environment policy. Even many of us don't have a policy for our life. If you have to be successful in your life, first thing you have to make is a policy for your life. The students can keep it in mind. What is the policy for your life? What you want to be? I used to ask the teachers a question. Henceforth 10 years or 10 years henceforth, what you want to become? This I used to ask the teachers when we were in some training programs or FDPs for teachers. Have you ever thought of it? This is where we fail. We don't. We always think that planning is of no use because life is not predictable. But planning things in the unpredictable situation is to be the policy. So we have to plan something. You have a personal planning also like this. You plan. When you plan something, your performance will be always better. Because when you plan something, all your activities will conform to the planned setup. Otherwise, it will be haphazard. You will not be able to control. Say, for example, I told a case, I did some research on becoming the topper in the class. Topper I have to become. So I made some planning. That means I stopped seeing films. I stopped wasting time. So this is quite natural. Similarly, for an environment, if you are going to plan something, you will plan such that you are wasting less resources, you are wasting less time, you are polluting the least, your production method is more efficient. So all this will come in planning. And of course, at an industrial level, all these are very important. Only after this policy measures you do, you can go for this planning. And this planning, you see that all the aspects have to be taken care of in the planning, because a person who plans must be, I'll always say an industry, if you are going to plan for an EMS, the top level you have to plan, because I used to tell my colleagues, when you go up and up, your vision will be broader. This is true in every case. For example, the vision of a peon in a college will be much narrower, whereas the vision of the principal of the college will be much broader because he knows everything, and vision of the owner will be still broader. So accept it. So many people have told me that I had once, for some period, I was working at a college at Trivandrum, availing leave from the government. I worked in a private college for some period. At that time, the owner of that college was not highly educated. And then one of my colleagues was asking, you are a PhD in engineering and you are serving with a person who has not even got a degree. And I said, he made the college and I am working for him and he is paying for me. That means I take him to be with broader vision than me. That is the truth. So that is why I always say, when you go for planning something, the people at the top should have the vision. If the people at bottom are having the vision, that vision will be very parochial. So while going for an environment planning, no single individual in the company or industry or college should feel that I can do everything. No. If you are an assistant professor, the associate professor in your department will know better than you. The professor will know still better. Principal will know still better. So take the help of those people who are higher up in the industry or organization, because they will have more exposure and vision on matters which you don't accept yourself, but accept it. Age and experience always give better vision. It need not necessarily give better knowledge. Knowledge is acquainted with learning, but vision is acquainted or is embedded with experience and exposure. But if somebody is not having any exposure, even if they are highly experienced, it is of no use. But you can easily understand who are the people having more exposure and more experience. That will be helpful to you. So in planning these aspects, all these things count, and you go in depth to all these things, provided you want to be a consultant for an EMS, then study these flowcharts quite well. And one more flowchart is there. Let us come to that. Once more is the 4 stages which I have told in implementing the EMS. It is once more explained here. You see the first stage. These are stages in implementation, not the 4 stages of EMS. The stages in the implementation stage. Implementation is one stage in EMS. Or that stage we can divide into 4. And you see the 4 stages. First stage is control of documents. Everything you should document, because in ISO it is compulsory. People even say that, or even laugh at ISO saying that it is only documentary work. For example, anybody who asks me about accreditation of colleges, so many people do ask me about accreditation of colleges. So, sir, how you should proceed, because they don't know where to proceed. I always tell them, you start with an ISO. Then they'll ask immediately why ISO is required for accreditation. I say ISO is not required for accreditation. Then I will say, after ISO is ready, I'll tell them you go for a NAC accreditation. But then they'll ask me, why NAC accreditation? NBA is better for engineering college. Then again I have to answer to them, NAC will inform you, will expose you to the requirements, and you will get an easy exposure to the accreditation procedure, because NAC is not as strict as NBA. Then if you go to NBA, it is just like climbing, first step, second step, and then third step. So that is how we say, if you go for a ISO, every step you have to be careful about, and each of these stages are clear to you. One by one you can read it, and of course, as I told, those who want to do something deep into it, and I'm again telling, once I have told that those who are having an engineering degree, teachers of colleges having an engineering degree or a master's degree in science, can be auditors for EMS. You can be auditors for EMS. You can attend some training course on EMS, where all these things will be discussed in 2-3 days. You can appear for a small test and you can become an auditor, and it is a well-paid job. For teachers in private colleges, there is no requirement for any permission. They can do it. Whereas teachers in government colleges should take the permission from the government for proceeding in that way. Now let us see the next. ISO auditor is a very good experience. You get a lot of exposure when you become an auditor. I suggest that some of you, my students who are listening now, and my teachers who are listening to this program, you can, and practicing engineering, you should become auditors, because it helps in 2 ways. One way is it is highly remunerative. Second thing is you will get a more in-depth knowledge about the environmental aspects in it. See the next slide. These are terms I already explained. I don't have to go to it. Next one, please. And I told we should have a policy. Without a policy, you should not proceed. So policy, we say, it's the benchmark or the framework. Without the framework, When you make a building, a multi-storied building, you first make the frame, then only you fill the walls. So the policy is the framework. That filling is the later procedure. Now let us see the next slide. And of course, mistakes can happen when you make a policy. When you make planning and policy, so many mistakes. When first time when you go for ISO, also I want to clarify here that ISO 14000 is possible for even educational institutions. Many people have the feeling that ISO 14000 is for industry. No, like ISO 9000. For example, my college is having ISO 9000. We took it long back, and we are, of course, now the next audit is also due. We are also going for ISO 14000. I want to go for ISO 14000 because ISO 14000 says that you are environmentally conscious. In industry, export is possible in many countries. For example, if you want to export something to US, your company is not having an ISO 14000 recognition, they may not even permit you to export to their country. Many countries, especially the Dutch countries, the Norwegian countries, and the US, many of the European countries, they don't accept products from without ISO 14000 because they want to ensure that you are also environmentally conscious. See the next slide. Keep everything recorded because nowadays recording can be there on soft copy, but ISO demands a printed hard copy also. Why? A printed hard copy you can showcase in your almirah. You can make people know that you are an ISO 14000 company, and your soft copies will be only in your computers, whereas your hard copies you can display. So that is why ISO always says you should have a printed policy, printed policy document. We always make documents for ISO. Maybe in the future, this may get eliminated because now we are going to online system. Even sometimes ISO inspection also may become, because now NAC and NBA are thinking of online inspection. So we may even resort to online inspection for ISO, quite possible. So right now we should have documents, printed documents. See the next one, please. You have to periodically review and audit. That is there for every ISO. There is annual review and 3-year re-auditing is there. That is there for ISO, like ISO 9000 it is there. Just to mention that. Next one, please. And EMS is always done for continual improvement, whether an individual or an institution. If you are not susceptible to change, I always quote the statement by Karl Marx that there is only one thing without change, and that is change. If you are not ready to change, you are obsolete, whether it is an individual or an industry or an academic organization. If you are not ready to change, you are outdated. This is applicable to teachers also. And if you don't update yourself with new knowledge, with new exposure, with new paradigms, we get obsolete, out of date. So that is there with EMS also. Always see to it that our organization is better. They can become better by why we insist on ISO and such things, because we are forced to do continual improvement. You have to make every year, you have to have inspection every 3 years, you have to have re-audit. In that case, you are forced to change, and we will learn so many things. That is it. We'll see the next slide. And these are some of the supporting documents. I'm not going to read it. You need a lot of documents for ISO preparation. This list will be given to you by your consultant. I told that when you go for ISO auditing, normally we will appoint a consultant. Consultant will be directly dealing with companies like Bureau Veritas or Board of Indian Standards, who will be giving you the ISO certification. They will be getting their franchisees of ISO. ISO directly don't give certification, they give it through franchisee. So many documents will be required, and these are the documents starting from environment policy that we call as the policy statement. You should have you have seen for accreditation purpose, you go for what is called mission and vision. Vision is a single statement or two statements which comprise of what your institution stands for, and mission states what are the ways through which you are going to achieve the mission. Like that, we will have an environment policy for the organization, and all other activities which we state have to be attained, which will conform to the environment policy. And of course, whenever you apply for some funding or something, they will ask you what is your environment policy. So that policy should be written in clear terms, simple, readable, understanding. Don't complicate it with Tarur type words and unreadable text and all. Make it very simple so that even a layman, a student can learn it and understand what is your environment policy. And standard policy statements, standard environment policy statements are available on the internet. You can go through it. And so many lessons are also available. We'll see the next slide. Getting EMS into other department also. Once you have an EMS, how you can get into the other departments. I'm not discussing that much. But to get into an EMS system, getting into the other departments is now. And one thing I suggest that every company, every organization which wants to go for an EMS should have an EMS coordinator. Like ISO, we will have an ISO. We have got what is called IQAC coordinator. IQAC coordinator for internal quality assessment cell, which will take care of ISO, which will take care of quality of the institution, which will take care of accreditation, which will take care of academic audit, all those things. Similarly, you can have an environmental internal auditor and an environmental EQAC in your institution. Environmental quality assessment cell in your institution, which can take care of all these requirements, and it can be headed by a person who are not by qualification but who is having some commitment to environment, because environment is a cause of the nature, not a profit based organization or profit based field. See the next slide. These are some myths. They are myths which are existing, like EMS is very difficult now. This I also had to face. For example, when I first addressed the staff of ITA Limited Kanjikot, at that time they were having 900 plus staff in the organization. Now they have come down because the company has gone down and down. I think now only 300 plus people are there. At that time, 900 people we assembled in the big shed there, so that with a loudspeaker I could address them. And when I started the session, somebody was asking me bluntly a question: "Sir, is it difficult to get ISO 14,000?" I said it is as simple as taking a lime juice. It's only that much. If you have interest in taking a lime juice, you can get it. Either you can make it or you can buy it. It is as simple as that. If you do want it yourself, you can do it yourself. If you don't want to strain yourself, entrust a consultant and pay him. He will get it done for you, and you will have to do only things which he says. That's all. So it is so simple. See the next slide. Next one. These are all the intertwining. Next one. These are all the intertwining elements in getting an EMS. And just go through this slide and skip it. These are the things we want in. And of course, coming to the last one, there will be so many roadblocks. Roadblocks means whenever something new you want to try, you have to face some blocks, and the quality of a person. The quality of iron is better known when it can cut something, not when it can be bent. Okay, so like that, quality of something is better known. Your quality will be known when you face the hardships and implement it. And EMS is a sine qua non. It's a very necessary for the society right now. Even colleges should have EMS. Maybe within 5 to 10 years, we'll have a compulsory order from the government saying that EMS is compulsory. Now, AICT has already given such guidelines, but state government has not made it compulsory. It will become compulsory. See the next one. This you can just skip it. What are the difficulties you are going to have? I don't want you to be disturbed, and don't worry about whatever difficulties you are having. We will always have a way out. EMS is not a big thing. We can have it. And I want all the colleges also to come up with IS 14,000 series so that you are having an environment management system. Next one, please. Our EMS, which is just right, that you know. And remember to keep your focus on the goal. Next one, please. We are having, these are all I added some masala to the slides to keep you in mind that if you are a bit creative, we can go for a specialized EMS for your institution. Next slide. Implementation and operation, this I explained earlier. What is the system? Beginning I started with this. Next one, please. And corrective action, of course, this also we discussed. Management review we have to do frequently. That those who are having the ISO 9000 will be knowing what is called an MR, management review. And the ISO, there is another MR which is management representative. Management review has to be done frequently so that it is working. Because only when there is a compulsion from the management, of course, in government sector, management is the government itself, and that compulsion is always very ineffective. But in private sector, whatever the management says will be done. So there it is easy to do the implementation. See the next slide. This I will discuss in the next class. Next class will be exclusively for 14,000. That is after next week. We will discuss 14,000. I will discuss these things there. Next one, please. This also I discussed earlier. The benefits. See the next. This anyway, and we can just skip it. I think time is almost over. I'm not going to the miniature. This also discussed. Next one. That's a summary. And as I told, this session was just to give a brief idea about EMS. What is environment management system? Our next session will be on ISO 14,000 exclusively. How to plan for 14,000. That is more important than this session because this is only a preview. What are all things to do? ISO 14,000 is a set procedure of things which you have to do. Like ISO 9,000 organizations do, ISO 14,000 we have to do. And I feel that some of the colleges also do come up with ISO 14,000 other than industries. And the students who are studying now, they should come up with such proposals when they go to the industry that ISO 14,000 is not something very difficult. We can go for it. And as I'm repeating what I told in the very beginning, next week we are not having a regular session on this. We are having a special session on you and the universe, about what is there in the cosmos, what is there on the earth, whether the earth will survive, whether the stars will survive, whether man landed on moon, whether man will go out of the space. All these things we'll be discussing in one session. And you can ask your friends also to join. Anybody is having interest in cosmic affairs. That joining link will be given to everyone who is interested, not to the participants. So I'll make it a special FTP, special program, so that others other than the participants here also can join it. Thank you very much. We'll see you next week.